Welcome everyone to another JDM racing video. This time it's round 21 in Brazil, Interlagos, one of our favourite circuits, and we're going to be going into qualifying 1 any second now. So buckle up, get comfortable, let's get going. So quickest in the session at the time, but we do end up third, so that's an extremely competitive time and good news, hopefully, for the rest of the weekend.
Remaining in the session. We need a good lap here or we're out of qualifying. Come on.
And we go from a 109.2 to a 108.6, and we actually end up quickest in that session. So Q2, we're fastest and might even be in with a chance at pole. Not to be though, our fastest lap, not quite as quick as we managed in Q2, but 5th overall is still up the sharp end and is still a good place for us to try to get a decent result for the sprint, which in turn will give us a decent starting spot for Sunday, and we'll take it from there. Lewis Hamilton, quick again as he's looked all weekend, so it's going to be hard for people to beat him as well. He looks in the mood.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway.
So Mercedes locking out the front row once again, Ferrari just behind. So those are two sets of very, very quick cars. We're going to have our job cut out for us this weekend if we want to try and get on pole for the actual Grand Prix, and all the points that get associated with that as well. So win the sprint is going to get 8 points. Again, anywhere in the top 8 would be fantastic to maintain. I'm hoping to stay in front of the McLarens and just tuck in behind the front 4, and I think that should be a decent haul of points that we can add to our tally, because the car is definitely quick enough this weekend for that. So not a terrible start. The Ferrari did look like it got a better getaway than we did, and the McLaren looked like it was going to try and dive up the inside into turn 1, but we managed to hold that, and he's trying again, but we've just seen him off. We're going to tuck in. And in those few corners at the start, that was the most action that there was throughout the whole sprint race. So we've managed to keep 5th, and we've managed to keep the McLaren behind. So we're going to have to make do with a 5th. That's all we can do for right now. So the 5th place nets us 4 points. The McLarens, like we said, stayed behind us, so we didn't have to worry about Norris coming through. The Mercedes dropped back, so Lewis Hamilton finished in 3rd in the end, with George Russell taking the win, and the Ferraris 2nd and 4th.
Formula One
returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his third championship here in 2012, and just 4 years later, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso, and Perez. Ocon, Russell, they've taken a grid penalty. Joe and Carlos Sainz. Albon, Vettel, Valtteri Bottas, and Mick Schumacher. Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Pierre Gasly, and Kevin Magnussen. Tsunoda, Latifi, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Gardner and Lewis Hamilton rounds off the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into Turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race?
So all of our hard work ends up being undone by the fact that we needed to change several engine components. It became clear after qualifying we weren't going to get through to the race and finish it without having to micromanage several aspects of how we're going to be able to drive if we left those components unchanged. So we've done that. Let's see how it goes.
Which ones have got it horribly wrong?
So I thought I'd gotten away with getting around the inside of Lewis into the S's, and we actually got onto the curb and a bunch of oversteer as we got off the curb, and that's took us behind. So we're just going to tuck in and see how the race plays out. Replay at the start then with Charles Leclerc on your left, Lando Norris on your right. And Leclerc, being on pole position, is going to hope that he can get a decent getaway, and it looks like he has. Veers across to the inside to block Norris as the Red Bull steams up the inside, and then coming out of the S's, Lando Norris might have switched back and kept that position. He does. So it's Leclerc from Norris, and Leclerc streaming out into the lead already, building a gap as we go further into the race. We go for the dive bomb there and take 3 positions, and then trying to defend that, and then go for another dive bomb for another position, and then tuck in behind the Aston Martin. A bit further around, we think about making a move on Lance Stroll into turn 1, chuck it in from way back, the hand goes up, I don't think Stroll saw us coming from that far back. We take the position and move on.
Great pass.
Next up, we're getting on the blower to Piastri. Out the way, son. Thank you very much. Don't keep the team leader back. And we're going to go straight after the Haas.
Rain is forecast in just over 10 minutes time. Rain in 10 minutes.
So we've gotten a few overtakes done, and then we come up to Vettel. And again, like his teammate, we try and take him into turn one. Get locked up. And it's pretty much exactly the same pass. So it must be something with the Aston Martins into turn one. Not wanting to give way. And back at the front we have Leclerc and Norris still fighting over the lead. And the Red Bull not too far behind. And also the Mercedes. So that group of 4 leaders all squabbling, and Leclerc does not look like he's managing to pull away as he did at the start of lap 1 as Norris looks around the outside and has to concede. Save his battery for another attempt a bit further on maybe. We get a move done on Albon and then look at Mick Schumacher next, and he almost jumps out of the way. So up into 11th and now chasing Zhou in the Alfa Romeo for that last points position. As we rejoin the race leaders, Charles Leclerc pitting from the race lead and the Red Bull following in. So Leclerc dives into the pit lane. The Red Bull turns in just a little bit quicker. Their pit box is closer and Leclerc gets held as the McLaren comes in. I think that must have been Ricciardo. And Leclerc loses the lead, or the net lead, once the pit stops have shaken out, to the Red Bull of what I believe is Verstappen there. So a nightmare for Ferrari at that pit stop, but Leclerc is going to have it all to do when he gets back out on track.
You're in the top 10 now. Keep it up.
Back at the front, Lando Norris in the lead. He decides to pit, so covering off Leclerc and Verstappen. The Mercedes, the other car in that leading 4, also pits. So Mercedes in, McLaren in. Is this going to be a good stop? Softs come off, mediums go on. There's a little bit of a hold there. So again, not an ideal situation as the Mercedes gets in front of the McLaren. Where are they going to come out in relation to the Red Bull? There's the Red Bull, bottom of your screen. So Verstappen goes through into the lead. The undercut has worked wonders for Red Bull. So Russell in second, Norris and Leclerc. as it pertains to ourselves, we're watching all the leaders pit, and we are just tucking in behind Perez and Sainz, who have taken over leadership of the race now.
We're approaching the pit window now, and you're going to be on hard.
So we see Sainz set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and immediately after we go one better and take that fastest lap from him straight away. And then Verstappen, after his pit with fresh tyres, does the same to us. So there's definite movement from behind. So into lap 10, and we shape up into the DRS zone, move around the outside on Sainz as Leclerc sets the fastest lap. So those guys that have pitted are really getting their tyres underneath them now. And we get Sainz coming back at us as we force him to the outside and take second place. Sainz comes back at us though, onto the start-finish straight with the DRS. Pops up round the outside into turn 1, but we just cadence brake a little bit to keep ourselves ahead. And while we're squabbling for position, we start to see little spots of rain appearing on the camera lens there, and straight away I'm thinking, we're on mediums, can we stretch these out and just get straight to inters? Because if it gets that wet and we don't have to do an extra stop, that is a massive, massive advantage. Perez and Sainz, who are on the longest stint, also on the medium tyre, decide to pit just after the rain starts. So Perez and Sainz both in the pit lane. Perez, pretty decent looking stop, back out on the hard tyre, and the same for Sainz. So those two just put fresh dry tyres on. We'll see if the weather changes and if they're maybe going to have to come in again or try and weather the storm on a track that's going to get a lot wetter, potentially, on fresh dries. Let's see how this pans out. So we are hedging our bets. We're going all in as we watch the two leaders pit in front of us. We're going all in on the fact that it's going to change weather type, and we're going to go try get straight to inters and see if the track gets a lot wetter. And as we see now on lap 16, the track has gotten wetter. The rain is continuing to come, so as we begin to start seeing spray coming off the front wheels, now is the time to dive in the pit lane and go and get those inter tyres.
Looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible.
Look after these tyres now. You want to finish the race on this compound.
So the regulation warning came up telling us that we needed to fit either the hard or the soft, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to get classified as a wet race now, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do have to worry about the Ferrari on the outside. We deal with that and move forward. So our job now is to chase down the front three who have committed to the dry tyre and sticking it out for the last couple of laps. First up is Norris, and we're going to have our work cut out to catch Verstappen, but we're going to try and see if we can get on the podium at least.
They've only got one lap of fuel remaining.
So the first part of this trilogy of overtakes required for the win is done, and we have to almost push Norris along a little bit, but we get it done in the end.
Final lap of the race.
So into the last lap, we're close to 4.5 seconds off Verstappen. We've got the Mercedes in front, so I'm going to let this play. We're so much faster around the corners. I'm going to let this play out for the rest of the lap and then catch up at the end with what's transpired.
Nice work, mate. That brings you up a place.
Certainly been an incredible year for Formula One, and our drivers have all pushed themselves this season, making it one of the most compelling years of racing in history. There can only be one champion, however, and here they are now, our new Formula One World Drivers' Champion. A great race then, very much as we've come to expect, and a fantastic victory here at Interlagos. Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
It's a heroic effort for any driver to race in conditions like these, and seeing them fight their way to the front was very special indeed. They were able to find all the grip, all the good lines, and had the confidence to get on the power to top it all off. That's what pushed them into first place here today.
So we see the scenes of Leclerc celebrating with his mechanics in the garage. He has won the Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen denied at the last couple of corners by the JDM, and that has prevented him from taking this to the last round in Abu Dhabi. Results recap then. We take the race win, our second of the season, from 21st on the grid. It fell our way, luckily. Max Verstappen and George Russell on the podium. Norris and Leclerc, who started on the front row together, actually dropped back. Norris does get the fastest lap and the extra point for that. Perez and Ricciardo 6th and 7th. Alonso 8th. Sainz 9th and Ocon 10th. So that's a good clutch of points for everyone involved there. And going down the field, Lewis Hamilton dropping. Well, I say dropping. He started at the back, got up to 13th. But not quite enough to get into the points. Piastri down the back again and wasn't quick enough to get on terms with the likes of Bottas and Stroll, but did beat Latifi. Confirmation as well that Charles Leclerc is your driver's champion for season 1 of this F1 My Team mode. Max Verstappen couldn't stop him. He ends up 28 points adrift at the end. Carlos Sainz closing in, so the battle is going to be for that second place now. Perez a little bit further adrift in 4th. And we are very, very close to George Russell and taking that 7th spot in the Drivers' Championship. As for the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari are the champions. Red Bull cannot catch them now, whereas JDM, we've pretty much consolidated 5th place. So I'll conclude by thanking you all for watching, and join us next time to wrap up the season in Abu Dhabi. See you then.